Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. Hope everyone is doing well this evening after a very exciting weekend of Bundesliga football. Just goals everywhere, and we had our champions crowned, as you can see me sporting their colours in the background. I felt if ever I had to show their shirt, it has to be this show and this weekend. And of course, Greuter's relegation was confirmed at the weekend as well. So we've got loads to go through. Really exciting featured four and an interesting talking point to go through as well. So hope you enjoy the show. Before we just go through the scores on the doors, we are indeed in partnership with Bundesliga Boxes, who provide mystery authentic German t-shirts for you in obviously in mystery boxes, hence the name. So go check them out on Twitter, or indeed check them out on their website to get yourself a mystery top or two. And indeed, please do like, comment, and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitter, just come over onto YouTube and say hello. Whether it's to say congratulations to Bayern or that you're sad that Fürth have been relegated, whatever you want to say. And if you've got any questions, fire them in and we will answer them as a priority. So over to you, Mark, to go through some scores, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what a weekend it was. It was a classic Bundesliga weekend, this one, that's for sure. I think right from the very first match on Friday evening when Wolfsburg were 5-0 up at half-time against Mainz. So just an incredible performance from Wolfsburg, but incredibly, as you'll see later, they've not actually made our feature four, so apologies in advance to Wolfsburg fans. I guess it was just that your game wasn't one of the more important ones on paper this weekend, but congratulations to Wolfsburg and Florian Kohfeldt, who we don't give too much credit to on this channel, let's be honest. So yeah, fair play to them. Yeah, Union as well, another team with a brilliant win. They got an excellent 2-1 win in Leipzig against a cup finalist Leipzig. That scoreline obviously reversed from Wednesday night's 2-1 win for Leipzig over Union, So yeah, obviously in this game, Leipzig took the lead. In the other game, Union took the lead. So yeah, quite an interesting couple of games. Then a 2-2 draw between Europa League experts Frankfurt and faltering Hoffenheim, an entertaining 2-2 draw there. And then a 3-3 draw between Freiburg and Gladbach. FC Köln continue their brilliant season with a 3-1 win over very, very close to the drop now, Bielefeld. Fürth, as Rory said, confirmed their relegation with a 4-1 home defeat against Champions League chasing Leverkusen. Bayern on the Saturday evening kickoff won their Klassiker 3-1 over Dortmund, crowning their 10th straight Bundesliga title, which we'll talk a lot more about later on. Then moving on to Sunday, it was all about the bottom half, wasn't it, on Sunday? Augsburg securing a massive 2-0 win in Bochum, more or less guaranteeing their survival for another season under Marcus Weinzel. And then, Rory, I think you want to forget about this one, but Hertha Berlin getting a 2-0 win at home to Stuttgart to go 4 points clear now of Stuttgart. It's not looking good for that bottom two at the moment, is it? That's for sure. So yeah, that was the scores on the doors for week 31. Another brilliant week. Obviously, every week that goes by at this stage, you're getting more and more drama, more and more like big matches on you. And this weekend was just absolutely stacked with huge matches, that was for sure. So yeah, let's go to OTB's featured four. I mean, we could have picked 6 games or even 7 maybe in this weekend, to be honest, quite easily. But obviously, time being time, we had to just cut it down to 4. So yeah, let's start off with game number 4. And it was that one in Nordrhein-Westfalen between FC Köln and second bottom Arminia Bielefeld. I mean, what a game this was, really. I mean, it was super entertaining. Obviously, going into the game, we knew that Köln was 7th place, chasing Europa League, maybe even with a very, very outside chance of Champions League as well. You don't want to completely rule that out, But obviously, on the flip side, you've got Bielefeld, who are really, really struggling, and they have been for months now, really, for most of the second half of the season, let's be honest. And they're right down in second bottom. But yeah, as for the game, it started in the worst possible way, really, for the away side. They had a good crowd as well, a good away following Bielefeld for this game, tucked in behind the goal. But it only took less than 3 minutes for Mark Rory, that man who's been absolutely brilliant in recent weeks. A bit of lax defending, really, from the away side, found a little bit of space, didn't he, in the box, and side-footed comfortably past Ortega in the Bielefeld net. Then, yeah, it was just more and more attack, really, wasn't it, for Köln? They were really, really up for this game. You know, obviously they realised it was a great opportunity to get the 3 points. And yeah, I mean, Ljubicic was really, really unlucky he's been brilliant as well in recent weeks. Dejan Ljubicic, absolutely brilliant. The wide forward on the right side for Köln. He curled an effort. I think Ortega had come right out of the net and he kind of robbed him of the ball and he curled an effort. It looked in all the way, didn't it? And it kind of just went wide. They would have been a little bit gutted about that one because I think it deserved a goal, really. It was a great effort from the Köln forward. But then, yeah, kind of against the run of play a little bit, really, wasn't it? I mean, it was absolutely dreadful defending from Kilian, the centre-half for Köln. He got robbed on the edge of the box, didn't he? And then he just kind of ran into the net, Wimmer. Played in a ball, basically, which was, you know, there were three men from Bielefeld just waiting to tap it in, but it was that man, Timo Hubers, who... Let's be honest, it wasn't the worst own goal you're ever going to score, this one. He just kind of got his feet mixed up, but it was one of them. What could he really do? Do you know what I mean? Because if he didn't get in the way, it would have been tapped home by one of the... Probably Yanni Serra, actually, would have got a rare goal there. But obviously, it wasn't to be for him. But anyway, that was 1-1. Looking a little bit better, probably against the run of play. But Wimmer was causing problems, wasn't he? He was really causing a lot of problems for with free kicks from the wide. Few good saves as well, forced by Schweber. But yeah, just before halftime, just as it looked so they're going to go in level, it wasn't to be, was it? It was that man, Anthony Modeste, you know, with his 17th league goal of the season. Not his prettiest one for sure, this one. It took a massive deflection off the Bielefeld defender. I think it was Petre, yeah. And it was very unlucky, let's be honest. And it kind of looped a little bit over Ortega, who... When I first saw it, I thought, could he have done a little bit better with this one? Because it wasn't really travelling that fast. But, you know, it's one of them that if you're in the position of Ortega there, it's probably not easy to save it. It just kind of bundles in. I think Modeste did another of his classic celebrations, really, didn't he? Ended up pulling something from the back of the goal and, like, showing it off to the fans. You know, he's an absolute character, Modeste. He really kind of sums up that club at the moment, the way it's going. Real character. Just loves playing football, doesn't he? So it was 2-1 at half-time for FC Köln. Then Rory in the second half, I would say, pretty much more of the same, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, obviously, Köln had a lot of good moments in the first half, and they're, you know, chasing this potential European place, whatever they want it to be. But the second half was you know, well, I think not end to end, but Bielefeld did have the chances. I think the American player that they signed that we've seen little bits of, George Bello, had a really good chance, which he fired over far from kind of a bit of pinball in the area. Mark Hood had a good chance as well. And then the centre back for Bielefeld, Ramos, made, you know, a good header from a free kick, which he flicked on. Again, good save from Schweber. He's really come to show why he is in there instead of obviously the veteran keeper Timo Horn. And then I think he made a really good save from Burak Ince. I think he was a substitute that came on for Bielefeld. I think he was basically through on goal, and Schweber managed to save that as well. And then late on, after kind of weathering the storm a little bit, Köln were able to break with Modeste, and he set up Jan Thielemann to make it 3-1 and finish the game. So, yeah, really important victory for European chasing Köln. I don't know what you call it, Champions League chasing or just any form of Europe. So they'll be really pleased with that. They, they've got great belief. They're timing their run really well. So I think they've got a brilliant chance of at least getting European football. Champions League, you'd probably imagine, is a bit too much, but the way they're playing, I know one of their running games is against Stuttgart, so that'll probably be a win. Bielefeld, they're in great trouble. The first game under the new interim manager since Frank Kramer was removed. They showed glimpses, but again, ultimately, it's that final third that's that has punished them. They could have got a few goals and maybe, made it a bit more tricky for Köln. But yeah, another loss. They're still, they're 2 points behind Stuttgart in the relegation playoff place. I think at the moment they can only aim as high as 16th and hope that they get through a playoff match right now, because otherwise it's looking pretty tricky for them. Obviously, next weekend's game against Hertha is ginormous for them and still for Hertha. So that'll be really interesting to see if they can get anything from that. But yeah, another loss with games and time running out is you'd be really worried as a Bielefeld fan. And I know they are so kind of sought after in England because we often get comments about Bielefeld and wanting them to stay up. So if you are watching, I'm not trying to bring too much gloom and doom if you're a Bielefeld supporter or sympathiser, but right now they look in all sorts of bother.
Yeah, obviously it was the first game without Frank Kramer as well, who was sacked in midweek. Again, I'm not convinced by the timing of that firing at all, to be honest with you, because I mean, Kramer, obviously they massively underperformed for a while now, but at the end of the day, to sack him with only 4 games to go and just after a defeat against Bayern, I mean, maybe they could have done that 3 or 4 games ago and given someone else a chance to kind of, similar to what Köln did last year, actually. I mean, they sacked their manager, Gisdol, with about 7-8 games to go, and obviously they did get a kick from the interim manager at the time. It wasn't Baumgart, obviously, but they did get that kick, and it was just enough to get them over the line. I think they ended up finishing 16th on the last day, didn't they? They just overtook Fürth. That's kind of what Arminia need to do right now, to be honest. They need to somehow get over Stuttgart and get into 16th, then try and find their way through a playoff, and obviously the stats are on the side. If it does come to a playoff, then the stats are on their side, because I think only since you introduced the playoff, I think, 15 years ago, only 2 fighter teams have actually won that.
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, it's not many. That's the last one was Union Berlin, actually 4 years ago. They beat Stuttgart, ironically. Yeah. It's but in general, it's usually the Bundesliga team who comes good in the end. But obviously, I think as Matt said on this Fighter podcast, he said a lot of teams will be hoping to play Arminia in that playoff. So, because obviously they're probably the smallest club, they're much smaller than Hertha or Stuttgart, that's for sure. It's a smaller ground to go to. It'll probably feel more like playing against a Fighter team in some ways, in terms of the infrastructure of the club. If they play against Hertha, it would be 74,000, or Stuttgart 60,000 fans, which is obviously a lot bigger than what they're used to in most fighter teams. But yeah, as for Köln, as you say, only 5 points off a Champions League place with 3 games to go, and all of the last games are winnable, actually. They go to Augsburg next, then they host Wolfsburg in the last home game of the season, and then they finish with that massive, I can imagine that's going to be a massive encounter away at Stuttgart on the last day, that's for sure. But I mean, who's to say they can't win all 3? And if they do, then I would imagine that would definitely get them at least a Europa League spot, which would be, I mean, to be honest, if they finish 7th, it's been a miraculous season, because this is a side that were abject for long periods of last season, and weren't really fancied to finish anywhere above 13th, 14th this season, to be honest. So congratulations to them. We've given Baumgart a lot of credit over this season. He deserves every single bit of praise we've given him and continue to give him, that's for sure. So moving on, obviously not such a nice game to talk about, this one, really, especially if you're a Greuter Fürth fan, because it was to be, they lasted 31 games as a competitive side, but this was to be the end of Greuter Fürth as a top Bundesliga team. We knew it's been coming, let's be honest, from the first 2 or 3 weeks, you know what I mean? But let's be honest, give them credit. They managed to get 17 points, which is more than what Schalke did last season, by the way. Schalke got 16 points. They comfortably beat the record lower points by, obviously, Tasmania Berlin of 10 points, which I think early in the season we kind of didn't expect would happen, actually, earlier on in the season. But it's they managed to do that comfortably. And actually this game, they knew they had to win to have a chance of staying up. And it started really, really well, didn't it? That man, former Newcastle man, Jethro Williams, actually, after a bit of ricochet in the area, he calmly side-footed into the back of the net, really, didn't he? But then it was pretty much calamity cuts, really, wasn't it, for the next 2 goals? Let's be honest. I mean, this is the reason why Fürth have ultimately finished rock bottom and why they are going down. Because I mean, just a few minutes after that was after just 5 minutes, and then after 8 minutes, awful defending from the corner. It kind of ricochets off the Fürth man, like a few men, let's be honest. And at first, it looks like Patrick Schick is way offside, doesn't it? You're thinking, there's no way that can be onside. But obviously, then you realise it does come off the Fürth man. And it's not going to be Schick's prettiest goal by any means, is it? He kind of like back heels it into the back of the net. He thinks he's offside. I'm pretty sure of that. And obviously goes to VAR, it's given, and that just about sums up Greuther Fürth's season in many ways, doesn't it? And then as did the next goal as well, let's be honest. I mean, this is going back to like the first 5 weeks of the season, Greuther Fürth, wasn't it, this one? And it's, again, it's the goalkeeper is on the ball, and he's just like dilly-dallying around. I don't know what he's doing, to be honest with you. He just needs to get rid of the ball. Linda, who, in fairness to him, has done really well, actually. I think
he has
5 or 6 clean sheets, actually, since he came in January, which is a really good effort for a side that were hemorrhaging goals literally left, right, and centre, weren't they? But this was his first big error, I would say, this one. He just lets himself get robbed by Azmoun, who actually, one of his first starts for the side after signing from Zenit St. Petersburg, just tapped into an empty net. He's got his first goal for Leverkusen, and, he'll hope to build on from there. But then Rory just kind of didn't really get much better for Fürth after that, did it? Let's be honest.
No, I think they needed to win just to stay up, didn't they, that weekend? Other weekend, and obviously chasing a game, mission impossible type thing anyway, wasn't it really? But it didn't get much better. I think Leverkusen had a goal disallowed. I think Paulinho had one where he tapped in, but Diaby was offside in the build-up, so that was obviously just a bit of a warning. Leverkusen did still mean business and that they were going to create chances of their own, let alone Fürth helping them out. And then Paulinho did get his goal after a really nice bit of play from Azmoun, clips the ball into the area for Paulinho to get on to the end of. He kind of shanks his first effort and then gets a bit of luck to then tap home with his other foot, making that 3-1. And then, the fourth goal came from another substitute, Palacios, who good finish actually from about 20 yards out, smashed it into the bottom left corner. 4-1. And therefore, condemning Greuther Fürth to an immediate relegation from the Bundesliga. I think there was quite a lot of raw emotion on the pitch immediately afterwards. Having got themselves into this position and not really being able to have the fans in for half the season or more, really struggling in the first part of the season, to then making a really valiant effort of things in the second half of the season. I think it's fair to say, getting those draws and things like that was kind of reminiscent of what, Bielefeld did last season, but they kind of left it a little bit too late. And when we previewed the season to start with, we said, Balkan will probably, mirror a bit what Bielefeld had done, be really tight and really organised, and Greuther looked like they're a team that get forward a lot and are exciting to watch, but they also concede a lot of goals. They did in the Zweite Bundesliga last season, and they've conceded just too many in the Bundesliga this season. So that's ultimately been their downfall. They've not got a lot of players who are probably Bundesliga level, but some have stood out. Obviously, the captain, Greuter, has done really well. So obviously disappointing to see any team get relegated. It's a shame for Greuther Fürth, but they'll probably be back before we know it. We shall see. Important win for Leverkusen. Important that they scored quite quickly after the early setback, I think, because they're probably not hugely high on confidence right now, but also they know because of the RB Leipzig result that they're now back up into third. They'll be feeling good about themselves and they'll want to finish the season nice and strongly. Good for Azmoun to get involved. Obviously, Patrick Schick getting goals as well now, back from injury, and they can start to build for a good end to the season and hopefully an exciting season going ahead into next year.
Yeah, it definitely seems as though Bayern are kind of struggling over the line a little bit into that top four, doesn't it? But this was a good weekend for them, obviously, with Freiburg dropping points. I think that this should be the weekend that kind of guarantees them that top four spot. But I think since Wirtz got injured, obviously, and obviously Schick missed 3 or 4 games as well, they've not quite looked the same side that we saw. Like, I think they've had 2 periods this season where they've just looked electric, haven't they? Like, they were just absolutely brilliant. But we do know that they're a streaky side, Leverkusen, but I still think if Sione can get them into that top 4, it's a case of like goal accomplished, basically.
Yeah.
They've not been in the Champions League for the last 3 seasons, and that's where they wanted to get to. And I think it's a big effort because, there's a lot of good teams in the Bundesliga, and the likes of, some of the smaller teams have massively done themselves credit this season. As we mentioned, Freiburg, Union, Cologne have just been absolutely brilliant. And, we know the quality that Leipzig have and the quality that Dortmund, obviously Bayern, they're pretty much guaranteed top 3 nowadays, really, in Germany. So it's mostly fighting for one place, really, aren't you now? And obviously, if Leverkusen can get that, it's a really, really good achievement. But I just think going forward, they need to bulk up the squad a little bit. That's the key for them, because it's... and I think Asmoon is a good way of doing that because he played in the position that Wirtz usually plays in this game, and he had a good match. I'm surprised we've not seen as much of him, actually, because I know he was a player that scored goals in the Champions League quite a few times for Zenit. So, yeah, I know he is a good player, that's for sure. So, yeah, I'd be interested to see a bit more of him between now and the end of the season. Yeah. So obviously, that's an interesting one. But as for Fürth, I think for them, it's mostly about keeping Stefan Leitl, the coach, because he is a very good coach, that's for sure. And he's proven that this season, turning a side that just looked absolutely abject into a side that could compete at this level the second half of the season, that's for sure. I think, if they can keep the likes of Jamie Leveling, Greuter, as you say, Julian Green, who got a little bit better as the season went on, and I think they can be in the top half at least of this fighter next year. But I know a lot of fans of theirs, actually, and a few of them are worried that they could potentially lose some of the better players and also Leitl, and that they might even potentially get the double relegation, which is surprisingly common, actually, in German football, because I think it's happened like 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years that a team has gone straight down from the Bundesliga down into the Greuther Liga, actually, within 2 years. So Fürth fans are a little bit concerned about that. And I think they'd just be happy with a season of consolidation, really, next year, for me, that's for sure. Okay, so, over to Rory to introduce the word of the day.
Yeah, indeed. It's been a while since we've done one of these, so we thought we'd try and reintroduce it. Just going through the Bundesliga Glossary A to Z. So we're just kind of introducing some fresh terminology, terms for you fans of the Bundesliga, obviously words that are associated with the Bundesliga, things that we hear basically on an everyday kind of basis, things that you might hear commentators use depending on what channels, of course, you watch your games on. So we're up to the letter I at the moment, and the only one that is basically that I can find anyway is Innenverteidiger, which is a centre back. So Mark, do you want to try and break this one down for us as well? Does it make sense grammatically in terms of German sense?
It's a really, really hard word to say, actually, this one. Yeah, like Innenverteidiger. Yeah, it's the word Verteidiger means defender, basically, and then Innen means like middle. So it kind of means middle defender, basically. So again, as with most German words, it kind of it makes logical sense, basically. But just obviously they use it slightly differently. But I guess if you called a centre back a middle defender, people would understand it in English. Do you know what I mean? So that's what it means, basically. Yeah, it's obviously a lot of good ones in the Bundesliga as well this season. Probably Schlotterbeck has been perhaps the best of the lot for me this year. Yeah, but I think it's definitely a position that the German national team as well needs to work on a little bit. Obviously ahead of the World Cup, who knows? We might see a couple of Bundesliga players in there come. Is it November, the World Cup this year?
It is. Yep.
Yeah. I'd love to see Nico Schlotterbeck in there. I think I'd support Germany in the World Cup if they played him. That's for sure.
Well, he's probably due a move soon, isn't he? By the rumours that we're seeing.
Yeah.
So that may aid his cause being in more of a popular or bigger team, so to speak. But anyway, that's our word for this week. So we're moving through as many as we can get through, all the way down to Z, to see basically to help everyone's understanding of words that are used in the Bundesliga, and something that you can share with your friends and your family as well. So that's this week's one's done. So we can move on to the rest of the countdown.
Yeah, that's for sure. So the top two games, we could have picked a lot of games for this, but we decided to go for this goal fest, the 3-3 draw between SC Freiburg and Borussia Mönchengladbach. I mean, this was just an insane. If there was ever a game that typified the Bundesliga, this was it. Basically, you had a full house in at Freiburg. Their fans have just been absolutely brilliant this season as well, since the fans were allowed to come back. I mean, remember, this is just a small town, Freiburg, basically, in the middle of the Black Forest. And they regularly get like 45,000 in the ground. Do you know what I mean? It's just we always talk about the crowds in the Bundesliga, but I think no more is it typified than by Freiburg. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like Burnley getting 45,000 every week. It's you just can't imagine it. Really. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and the crowd are just so ferocious as well, aren't they? Like, they really get behind. I know they're having a good season, so it's probably easier to support a team that are having such a good season, but credit to their fans, and some of the crowds in general this weekend are just like flabbergasting. They really are, it's like, they're literally like, I think the Bundesliga average is about 15,000 per game more than any other league or something like that. It's just unbelievable numbers, like regularly games are getting over 50, 60,000 fans. It's just absolutely massive crowds, really. And this was another one. Great following from Gladbach as well behind the goal, although their fans did hurl up a big banner criticising the players actually during this match, saying no spirit, no character, no desire or something. And they wanted to show their fans that they were absolutely not accepting that performance against Cologne last week, where they were obviously beaten in the Rhine derby 3-1. They're not happy with what's happening there under Adi Hütter. That there's rumours that they can't sack Adi Hütter because of the amount of money that he's on. But for me, I think they should give him a second season, to be honest, because we've seen that he is a very good manager, but clearly this season is really not worked out. But anyway, the game actually started really, really well for them here. Obviously, most people were backing Freiburg. I definitely had Freiburg down on my list as a home banker, really, in this one. Yeah. But obviously, they got a penalty in the first couple of minutes. Actually, the penalty was awarded, and it was actually Greuther, a handball from Greuther. This is one of them that I think, on one hand, yes, it was a penalty because he was very clearly hit the ball at his hand, but at the same time, it was a natural position, in my opinion, because he kind of slid in, didn't he? And it's like, yeah. I mean, I'm never quite sure about these ones. It probably was a penalty by the rules, but could Greuther really have done that much about it? Probably not, in my opinion, really. But anyway, it was quite surprisingly given to Bensebaini, the penalty. I don't know whether that was a decision because of some of Gladbach's misfiring forwards. I don't know, really. It could have been a bit of a rebellious mood. But, it was rather kind of unorthodox penalty, really, wasn't it? It didn't really take much of a run-up, but he actually put it right in the bottom corner, well out of the reach of Flecken, and it was 1-0 to Gladbach inside 3 minutes. And it got even better as well. A really, really nice ball through to that man, Braille Mbolo, who has been really, really good recently. I think this was his 4th goal in the last 6 games. And he really, really confidently chipped it over Flecken for 2-0 inside the first 15 minutes. And Freiburg was shell-shocked, basically. We talked about this big crowd that were really rampant before the game. But, the fans never stopped getting excited in this match. They were really, really behind the team. And it took probably until about half an hour for them to start creating chances. Once the chances came, they really, really did come in, very, very fast succession, basically. And to be honest, they should have been back in the game before half-time, in all honesty. They had a couple of chances. But obviously, they couldn't quite convert the chances in this game. Demirovic, who got a rare start, actually, in this match. Yeah, he missed a couple of chances, probably showing why he perhaps hasn't been playing as much as what one might imagine so far this season. He miskicked from quite close to the net. Grifo was causing problems. Salai was causing problems. But somehow, Gladbach did manage to get in at 2-0 ahead at half-time, Rory. And then in the second half, it was just complete carnage, really, wasn't it?
It was, and like you say, just the perfect advertisement for Bundesliga football, as pretty much every single game was this weekend. So yeah, Freiburg got themselves back into it thanks to another penalty. So Vincenzo Grifo very ably put that one away. I think it was after Liner was given. Was it also a handball or was it a foul? I can't
No,
remember.
it was a foul, but I thought it was a bit of a soft one. That, to be honest,
Yeah,
when the corner was coming in, it gave him that he tripped Hurler. I think it was Hurler.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a very soft decision, that one, really. But
yeah, I wasn't sure about that one, but yeah, lifeline ultimately. Then Captain Fantastic Gunter got in on the act, so he equalised from distance with a really nice, precise low drive, beating Sommer. I think it was Eggestein who set him up, and then Eggestein almost scored himself not long afterwards. So I think that was Gunter's first goal of the season as well. Been really, really solid as well for Freiburg this season. And then the full comeback was complete from a corner, Gunter's corner, so got an assist as well. This time, the rising Lineheart got in on the act with a good header, precisely in the middle of the area, just probably not challenged well enough, heading it past Sommer from close range. So 3-2. That's with about 10 minutes to go. And so obviously, like you said, I mean, the fans are already kind of, going for it already. And after that, it was like pandemonium inside the area, inside the stadium. Absolutely loving life. Results probably going their way at the time because they were winning. Leipzig had just probably conceded as well to Union, and they're thinking this could be a really big moment in our season in terms of maybe getting Champions League football. But there, of course, was plenty of football still to be played, and so another equaliser came for Gladbach right in the last minute, 93rd minute, I think it was. Absolutely gutted. It would be a good cross into the area. And Lars Stindl, who we've not really seen much of in terms of being on the goal scoring sheets this season, as obviously is ever kind of green player that Gladbach always rely on. And he got himself a good goal to make it 3-3 and kind of burst Freiburg's bubble. I probably have to say on both, ironically, talking about Nico Schlotterbeck and being one of the better players, centre halves in the league this season, I think for goals 2 and 3, he's probably messed up. Second goal, he gets, obviously, Embolo gets past him. He shows good pace to get back up with Embolo, but he's not strong enough to even put Embolo off. And then the third goal, he gets caught underneath the cross, and he either mistimes this jump or he doesn't quite get to there. Obviously, for Stindl to knock home. So maybe not Schlotterbeck's greatest game. You'd hate to think anything that's in his brain about maybe getting a transfer move is affecting his performances. I'm sure it's not, but it's the sort of thing that people throw out there, isn't it? So maybe I'm being stupid for saying it. Unfortunate result for Freiburg, but they're still in the mix. Obviously, they're having this amazing season anyway, alongside a move of stadiums. Christian Streich has got them playing really impressive football. And at the end of the day, they're still only 2 points off fourth place. And with 3 games to go, anything is possible. For Gladbach, I guess, whether the banner achieved what the fans wanted to achieve, I don't know. Obviously, they got off to a really good start, but it was kind of like it's given to them rather than earned. Although they did create chances and they show good character to keep going towards the end and get a subsequent equaliser and get a point on the board. A lot of work for them still to do, though. As you mentioned, if they haven't got the money to get rid of Adi Hutter, then obviously they've just got to stick with it. Try and get a system in place where they're playing more consistent football and not conceding as many goals. So many goals they concede is crazy. And they need a consistent team on the pitch. I feel for me that Gladbach is really hard to predict the team that they're going to put out. I often see different kind of shapes, whether that's based on injuries and other things or not. But yeah, I mean, the game itself was absolutely crazy. I had Freiburg down as my home banker, but wasn't to be. Superb advert for the Bundesliga, really enjoyable, and Freiburg still well in the mix, and Gladbach are just kind of trudging towards the end of the season now.
Yeah, I think you could obviously see at the end when they got that equaliser. Normally, you'd see the fans like in pandemonium, but I think Stindl almost was like apologetically going over to the fans, really. And I think, despite the fact they got that equaliser, they realised that they, got pretty lucky. Let's be honest, because that second half performance wasn't good enough, really, from Gladbach, was it? Despite the fact that Freiburg were very, very good. Let's be honest. Yeah, but that was their only shot at goal in the entire second half. That last minute header, basically, as you say. But I think obviously another key moment in that was Salah's header, which was cleared off. Gladbach scored as well. They looked like they got a 4-2. Salah kind of had a header, got over the keeper, I think it was. Yeah, but then it was well cleared off the line, I think, by Elvedi. And then they just about managed to get the equaliser, obviously. But yeah, not a bad point for Gladbach, but the overall season has just not been good enough, has it? At the end of the day, a team with their quality, shouldn't be down in 11th and just about fighting to get a top half finish. And they'll be lucky to get that, let's be honest, because as you say, they score goals, Gladbach. If you look at the number of goals, they got 45 goals in 31 games, which is not a shabby return, but they've conceded 58. It's just appalling. It's almost 2 goals a game on average, And they've actually conceded 10 just to Freiburg, because obviously famously they lost 7-0 at home to Freiburg in the preceding. I think it was like 6-0 at half time or something ridiculous like that. So
and they lost 6-0 to Dortmund.
Yeah, they'll definitely be glad to see the back of Freiburg, that's for sure, and especially Greuther, I think, has given them a lot of grief, pardon the pun, but that's 2 out of 2 in 2 weeks now, yeah. But it's, I definitely think that they'll be glad to see the back of Freiburg, and they'll definitely be glad that they've got a probably slightly undeserved point, really, in this game, but yeah, absolutely. Fair play to Freiburg. Even if they missed the Champions League, it's been a famous season. Obviously, they've got a cup final to look forward to in a month or so as well. After the 3-1 win, they got at Hamburg as well. Very comfortable that night as well. So, yeah, we'll just have to see where the last 4 games of the season can take them. Who knows? We might see them Champions League and cup winners. Who knows? Yeah. So let's move on to the game of the weekend. It had to be this game, didn't it? Let's be honest. It had to be the Klassiker. Perhaps not the biggest bill, the Klassiker you're ever going to see, because we all knew that, regardless of if Dortmund managed to put in a performance here, that Bayern were going to win the league, and that's indeed what they did. But I mean, it was another entertaining game. It always is. Only 4 goals seems like a low scoring De Klassiker, really, doesn't it? But I mean, It was certainly not short of entertainment. Obviously, the first De Klassiker in front of a full stadium for a long, long time as well. I think the last 4 have been played against either closed doors or against partially closed stadiums. So yeah, fantastic to see a full crowd, which is what this game deserves. A lot of celebrities in the crowd as well in Bayern. Obviously, Alexander Zverev, the tennis player, was there. The Marcus Söder, the leader of the Bavarian Parliament, was in the stadium as well. So they had a really, really star-studded lineup for this De Klassiker, that's for sure. But yeah, as for the game itself, obviously Haaland did start the game, but obviously it didn't really work out. Possibly his last ever De Klassiker. Obviously he's played in 5 or 6 of them, and he got a fair few goals in those as well, but wasn't to be in this particular game. To be honest, I thought Haaland wasn't at his best in this Klassiker, to be honest, and he hasn't been for quite a while, really, Haaland. And it does seem as though, he's kind of thrown his toys out of the pram a little bit the second half of the season, if I'm being honest with you. His goal return has been much, much below what it normally has been for the other 2 years of his time at Dortmund, where he's averaged almost a goal a game during that time. I think he's only got 2 or 3 goals in the second half of this season. So it's not been, obviously he has had injuries in there as well, but yeah, as for the game, it only took 15 minutes. It never takes long to break the deadlock in these games. It was a corner that was just not cleared, and it was actually a really, really well-hit volley by that man Gnabry, wasn't it? Really, really well hit from the edge of the area, sent it dipping into the back of the net past it was actually hits in the net for Dortmund as well, which I think would have been giving Dortmund fans nightmares before the game, let's be honest, after some of his performances last season. They were missing the ever-reliable Kobel, who's had a really, really good season. It was unfortunate for him to miss this game because obviously he is one of the crowning glories of being a Borussia Dortmund player. But yeah, it was a very good effort. Nothing Hitz could do about it. It was just a few minutes after that, Gnabry had another goal disallowed. it wasn't him that was offside. It was actually Kingsley Coman in the move. Actually, in the build up to the goal it was half a leg offside, wasn't it? Let's just say that much.
Yeah.
It was a correct decision, but again, poor defending, I think, by Zagadou. He always seems to get rolled out, Zagadou, for these kind of games, but I can never understand why, to be honest, because I remember the game against Leverkusen, he made 2 howlers. I think he played against Leipzig as well, and he was the same kind of standard. I don't know why he always gets rolled out for these big games, but I guess we have to ask Marco Rosa about that. But yeah, obviously they did get the second goal before half-time as well, and it was that man, wasn't it? It was Lewandowski. He always gets a goal against his former employers. I think I saw a statistic, it was like his 24th goal in 16 Classicas against his former employers, which is just horrible, abnormal numbers, isn't it? Let's be honest. And he just seems to revel in scoring goals against a team that once obviously won 2 titles with Dortmund as well. So, I mean, obviously it's a club that's very much in his heart. He also got to the Champions League final with the club as well. So, in his glittering Bundesliga career, that's for sure. Yeah. Then obviously Dortmund, I thought they were very poor in the first half, to be honest with you, but they did improve in the second half, didn't they, Rory?
They did, yeah. Well, they were basically handed a lifeline, weren't they, by Joshua Kimmich, of all people, making a really rash tackle inside the area, taking out Marco Royce. I was about to say Marco Rosa there. And it was aptly tucked away by Emre Can. So obviously, nor Haaland nor Royce fancied it. I know Can takes some set pieces, but I thought that was maybe a bit odd. Other way around, he's a good striker of the ball, isn't he? So yeah, made it 2-1. Then I think there are a couple of obviously big points in this game, and obviously Dortmund got a lot of confidence from that. There was a really, really big and important tackle or block made by Luca Hernandez inside the area, where it looked like if the shot was going on target, it was probably going in. I think that was from Marco Royce. I think Marvin Hitz actually managed to stop Lewandowski a couple more times with a few decent saves. Haaland, got involved a bit more. I think he had a deflected shot, which was tipped wide by Neuer. And so I think there was a really good chance for Royce as well, where Haaland set him up, but it kind of hit Neuer's legs and Bayern managed to scramble it away. And that was, kind of the most of what Dortmund could conjure up inside the Allianz. And as the game was kind of slowly drifting towards the inevitable win, Bayern made sure of it with another kind of not amazing bit of defending by Dortmund. The ball kind of ended up being a bit of a goalmouth scramble, and Jamal Musiala was in the right place to kind of smash home from no distance, basically 3-1, and that was the game. But Bayern are champions. Thoroughly well deserved. Congrats to Bayern. 10 in a row is quite astonishing and striking. Nagelsmann's first trophy, of course. So he'll be relieved, probably more than anything else. But we'll talk a little bit more about Bayern in a moment, because it is basically our talking point. In terms of Dortmund, disappointing first half, particularly. I agree with that. Mark showed, glimmers in the second half that you maybe kind of argue the point if Kimmich doesn't make that tackle and it stays at 2-0 for a little bit longer, does that comeback even happen? Haaland, I agree, probably has played his last Klassiker. That's all very disappointing to see Haaland move on if he does. But yeah, I mean, again, Dortmund, they're pretty much secure for Champions League football for next year. They've been disappointing in the cup competitions and in Europe. That's all very much agreed. Marco Rosa will be there come next season. I can't imagine, even if they lost the next 3 games, he would get sacked probably. So they need to build for next season. Obviously, they've already done the business of taking Niklas Süle away from Bayern, which, obviously a very interesting bit of business. So they're addressing the defensive area. They've got Kobel, obviously in net, which is a very solid signing. Lots of rumours about Nico Schlotterbeck going over to Dortmund, which would be a fantastic signing for them. What a partnership that could really be for Dortmund in years to come. For me, it's all about targeting next season. But it's been a bit of an underwhelming season by Dortmund so far, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we mentioned a lot last week, didn't we, about potentially Haaland moving on, but I don't think he could be the main loss. I do believe that there's reasons to be confident for going ahead for Dortmund, as you say, mainly because of that centre-half partnership. I don't think Schlotterbeck has been officially confirmed. I think he actually came out in the midweek and said, no, it's not been officially done.
Yeah.
Maybe that's to do with the fact that obviously Freiburg have still got really a lot to play for between now and the end of the season. It doesn't. We've seen it in the past, haven't we? I think obviously Goetze famously sat out the Champions League final, didn't he, after declaring he was moving to Bayern. And yeah, I mean, that was probably something that haunts him for the rest of his career, because I don't think he ever got the chance to play in another final. So, I mean, obviously Schlotterbeck is very, very good professional, captain of the club, and he's not going to want to kind of let that any rumours kind of get on top of the rest of the season for Freiburg. So, but I do think he'll join it. There's a lot of noises, and I think even Bully News reported that he pretty much signed, didn't he? So yeah, I always trust Runer and his boys. So yeah, I would imagine that will go ahead. Süle is obviously confirmed. He is a good sign and a very, very rare poach from Bayern as well, because I know Bayern wanted to keep him as well. It wasn't a case of him just being thrown out at the back door. They wanted to keep him, obviously as a backup centre half, but still I think he's always been a good player at this level, and I think he had other suitors in the Premier League too. I think Newcastle, Tottenham were after him, so it's definitely a coup for Dortmund to take him. And a player with experience and having won titles could be a great sign and a move in the right direction for them ahead of next season. But obviously, we could see a very different Dortmund-looking team in the next Klassiker, that's for sure. As for Bayern, I would imagine it'll be pretty much the same side as it has been for the last 4 or 5 seasons, really, let's be honest. They don't make that many signings nowadays. But, yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. So, yeah, over to Rory to introduce our talking point of the week then.
Yeah, indeed. So our Bundesliga box is talking point of the week. So obviously, if you haven't seen any of them, it's just basically where we kind of cherry pick something that we think is in the news or is relevant to us or anything like kind of going on with regards to players or managers or teams. So this week, on the back of Bayern winning the 10th Bundesliga title in a row, we're kind of discussing how can the Bundesliga stop Bayern's dominance. And obviously, we're not kind of anti-Bayern, by the way. It's just kind of an interesting point to talk about in the fact that they have won the league for the last 10 years. And, for the sake of the league and things going forward, we need to see more of a competitive title race. I think obviously the 2 years that we've been doing this show, we've been trying to cook up imagination about how we got a title race at certain points in the season. And a lot of it is maybe I was kind of fluffing the pillow a little bit and trying to make it more entertaining than maybe it might seem. But so that's kind of why we want to talk about it a little bit, I guess. So, Mark, I mean, before we kind of concentrate on Bayern, because I think there's going to be a really interesting summer coming up for Bayern based on a lot of rumours and chat about player contract renewals and et cetera, et cetera. But before we talk about that, let's talk about what the Bundesliga can do in terms. So we're talking about obviously the other teams, not about, the overarching powers that be just stopping Bayern from winning. So the obvious candidates are the likes of Dortmund, the likes of Leipzig, and probably maybe Leverkusen thrown into the mix if they keep players. So I know we talked a little bit about it. So why don't you touch upon those teams and maybe something about the ambition, maybe that you've kind of talked about a little bit with me before?
Yeah, well, I think the easy answer to that is just stop selling your damn players. Do you know what I mean? It's I think obviously there are other issues as well, but I think ultimately it does come down a little bit to ambition as well. Yeah, I do. In my opinion, Bayern are not this kind of team that are just absolutely superhuman, never lose a game, beat everyone 5-0. We've covered this league for 2 years now on this show. We know that they can lose games. They get last minute winners sometimes. They get undeserved equalizers. It's not like every single game they're just dominating. But the problem is that there's some very good teams in the Bundesliga, as we've seen in Europe. Eintracht Frankfurt knocking out Betis and Barcelona. Leipzig storming through against a good Atalanta. We know these teams can play well on the day. But the problem is it's a consistency which is largely due to teams starting slowly integrating new players into the system, in my opinion. If you look at last season, Leipzig finished second. They were by a distance the second best team in the Bundesliga. Okay, they give Bayern the coach, Nagelsmann, the coaching staff, which are very highly rated amongst football, Upamecano, who was the best centre-half in the league, Sabitzer, who was the best goal-scoring midfielder in the league. Mm-hmm. And this is literally the biggest rival, basically.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, Leipzig have gone on to have a good second half of the season, but obviously a lot of those players that have gone on to be really good, the likes of Gvardiol as centre-half,
yep.
Simakon, but they took half a season to blend in, which is normal for a team, and when they got going, they've been very good. And once again, they're both being linked with bigger moves again this summer now, after just 6 months of good performances. But the thing is, there comes a point when the Leipzig hierarchy, you've just got to say, look, we want to win a league, We're a serious club and we want to win the Bundesliga, and we know we can. We've got one of the best youth systems in Europe. We, time after time, churn out brilliant players that go on to be like superstars, international level. And now we've got to say, okay, let's say 2-3 years, let's just see how it goes. Let's try and keep our best players. We know there's not a money issue at Leipzig. Do you know what I mean? We know that. It's not about keeping the club alive. So why not just say, okay, this year, Nkunku, Lima, Gvardiol, Simakon, Silva, they're staying at Leipzig, and that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to just see a bit of like toughness now and say, hey, Bayern, hey, Premier League, hey, PSG, you're not having our players, It's that simple. What about you, Rory? Do you think that's a fair comment, or do you think I'm being naive a little bit?
No, I do think you're getting a lot of the kind of point there. I think obviously the problem is as well that a lot of these players are available to be bought on the cheap because of these release clauses that are inserted into their contracts. So maybe that's an issue in terms of when they signed a player, like maybe a lack of foresight, undervaluing a player. So if we look at Haaland again as a top level player example, Man City are likely to buy their Haaland this summer for what is his release clause, around 60 to 70 euros,
70 million euros,
70 million euros, around that sort of figure. In terms of the inflated market, and obviously know that we've gone through COVID, so the money isn't as crazy as it maybe was. But Haaland is quite easily a 100 million euro player and more if you base it off recent transfers, Neymar's, etc., etc. The silly money that's been going around on that. So that's a lot of money that Dortmund are likely to miss out on because of the contracts and the release clause. Similar things with maybe Nico Schlotterbeck, Freiburg, like whispers of him going for around 18 to 20 million euros because I think he's got 1 year left on his contract, but still that seems like a really small amount of money for probably the best German defender in the league, and he's at a good age profile. So maybe that's something that needs to be looked at. Again, I guess there is the thing about, Leipzig financially are absolutely fine, but none of the clubs are as rich as Bayern. And Bayern, of course, do have that pull. So it is a tricky balance at the moment, it seems. In regards to Bayern, they can't help being the best team, the most consistent team, the team with the most money. Like, you're not just going to stop doing that. And they are this juggernaut that just keeps on grinding things out. What's interesting to see is that Nagelsmann has obviously done a job in terms of winning the league, which is obviously a minimum requirement. But there's lots of whistle. I know Muller sounds like Muller and Neuer will probably sign contract extensions. That's fine. But there's lots of chat about Lewandowski, and that can't be ignored. Sounds like Gnabry doesn't want to renew his contract, which is quite an interesting one. Obviously, they lost a lot of experience last season. Obviously, Boateng, obviously his time was up. Martinez. So, there's lots of players that have moved on, and this Bayern team, they try to throw in youngsters here and there, but again, like you say, they do generally just cherry pick the better players from Leipzig or Dortmund or anyone else. So if they're not able to do that this summer and they lose a few players, it really, for me, opens up the title race so much more so next season. It's not a very easy question to answer, Mark. Just to finish off this point before we go on about this for hours upon hours. What do you reckon Bayern, will maybe look like next season? Do you expect them to be, do you expect the title race to be, even easier for Bayern, or do you think it'll actually be a more genuine race?
No, I'm optimistic on this. Yeah, I do believe it will be a better race next year. Yeah, I think Bayern, as you say, a lot of the players and even the fans have not been like massively overwhelmed with Nagelsmann. It seems, I think in a way it's a little bit harsh, but he's definitely not hit the levels of Hansi Flick. That's for sure. Because I mean, Hansi Flick was just like one of the great Bayern managers, really. And they were upset to see him leave. Although it did seem as though obviously it was due to a clash with Salihamidzic why he left in the first place. So I think that's the one thing that you have to get at with Bayern. They always do. They have a lot of like big egos in the boardroom and stuff, and Bayern Munich is like very much a club like with a big ego club. Do you know what I mean? They know that the big boys in Germany and one of the big boys in Europe. And I think, that could be, they could self-implode one day with that, but in my opinion, it simply comes down to the teams have got to keep the best players. And I do believe this Leipzig team is good enough to challenge the title next year. I do believe that. I don't think they're that much worse than Bayern Munich. I know some people will watch this and laugh, basically, but I really don't. If you saw the game they played in the second half of the season, they lost 3-2. But they were the better side throughout. Do you know what I mean? And I know they lost this weekend, but that was mostly because they rested a lot of players. But if you look at Leipzig's form this second half, before this weekend, they'd won 11, drawn 2, and lost 1 in the second half of the season. That is title-winning form,
Yep.
And I know that if they keep this team together with the quality that they have, they can challenge for the title. But the question comes over to the Leipzig hierarchy. Are you going to fight and keep the likes of Nkunku, of Lima, of Simakon, or are you just going to sell them again, And for me, that is what it depends on whether we'll have a title race next year.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic, isn't it? Like we could probably spend an entire episode doing this one, which, funnily enough, we'll probably start to do next season. But more of that in the months to come. But yeah, that's pretty much us for tonight's show. Hope everyone enjoyed it. We certainly have. So we'll be back on Thursday as per with our obviously weekend preview as the games tick down. We'll start to release a bit more information about our end of season shows as well. So over to you, Mark, to close up the show, and of course remind everyone about our little collab with the Spider Bundesliga pod as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you enjoyed what you saw today, check out Over the Bar FB and Over the Bar Extra. Also our main site, which is otbfootball.net, of course. Yeah. And yeah, obviously remember to like, comment, subscribe below. Obviously, we have done a lot of interesting stuff the last week. As Rory said, we released this Fighter podcast, which has already got a lot of views as well, which is great. But keep viewing that. It's always great to have Matt on, and obviously Eva last year as well. But it's always great to have them on because you can really kind of be looking ahead to next season and finding out, which players are going to be in the Bundesliga, which teams. And, we had a great time with Matt last week. I think it was Easter Sunday we recorded, actually. And it was a great time with Matt over in Australia. So, yeah, check that out. Obviously, check out, our Spanish football rights as well. What a massive coup that was for the channel, Yeah, Revista de la Liga 2.0. Yeah, check it out on our site. Yeah. We have Guillem Balaguer, Roberto Martinez on our channel. It's just an incredible thing. Check it out, literally. For you Spanish fans, obviously you've got to check that out and watch it on replay. 2 hours of Revista de la Liga goal, basically mayhem, really, wasn't it? It was. I watched it. I took the afternoon off work to watch it live. So yeah, it's you got to watch that. It was great stuff. But yeah, obviously, as for us on the Bundesliga show, we got a lot of stuff coming for you, and the next show will be on Thursday as the end of the season hots up. So see you then, guys.